Why are so many people fleeing California and moving to Phoenix, Arizona? Now, there are a lot of answers to that question, but we're going to focus on things like the taxes, the cost of living, not keeping the state's financial house in order, the homeless issues, and the list goes on and on. But if you're someone sitting in California today thinking of making the move outside the state to another place, Phoenix is a great option for you. And I'm going to break it all down in this video right now. My name is Kelly Cook, and I've been running this YouTube channel for 5 years and selling real estate in Phoenix for 20. If you would like to skip this video and give me a call the number on the screen here, 480-660-5974, or book a time on our calendar link below. So now let's start off with the thing we all love. Taxes. They say only two things are for sure in life, that's death and taxes. So if it's that important, well, let's talk about one of them right now, because possibly while you are alive, you can avoid paying some taxes and therefore keep more money in your pocket where it belongs. Now let's start with state income tax. Now in Arizona, we have the lowest rate out of all the entire country for a state that does charge state income tax, because Arizona does. Now, I know there's some states that have 0 on the income tax side, which is amazing, but Arizona's right there with them, or pretty close, at a flat tax rate of 2.5%. Now, California, on the contrary, has some of the highest state income tax rates. So you can see on the screen now, you break it all down, but it goes up to 12.3% on your state income tax. That is a lot to pay, so let's break that down really quick. Now, there's a lot of places you can go out and get calculators to run these scenarios, but we broke down one scenario for you really quick, and that is if you make $150,000 per year and you're filing married jointly, then in California, your tax bill would be $10,492 you got to pay to the state, not even counting the feds for your tax for that year. Whereas in Arizona, same scenario, make $150,000, your tax bill is $3,750, an annual savings of $6,742 for the year. Now, what could you do with an additional $6,700 a year? Think about that for a second. And that's if you make $150,000. What if you make more than that? Well, based on percentages, that gap gets even larger and larger, and it really makes you think about possibly moving to Arizona alone. But wait, we're not done yet. Let's go to property taxes. Now in California, the property tax base rate is going to be around 1%, which is actually right around the national average for most states. But in Phoenix, that base rate is around 0.56%, making it the 13th best state in the entire country when it comes to low property taxes, and one of the best places for a major market, a major city in the US for low property taxes. So not only property values less in Phoenix, you get more bang for your buck than you do in California. Let's do a quick breakdown of a scenario. Let's take the two higher end price points of cities, specific cities and suburbs in both states, and compare them right now. So we have a client right now that's actually under contract with a property here in Scottsdale. It's a beautiful, gorgeous home, and they're under contract for $3,050,000. And this client is actually moving from the LA area, not just the general LA area, but specifically Brentwood. Now, those of you who know the LA area, Brentwood, well, that's a nice place to live overall. And what they're doing is they're trading a house that's around 3,000 square feet for one that's around 5,000 square feet in Scottsdale. Now, the house valued in Brentwood is about $6 million, whereas the house they're under contract with in Scottsdale is just over $3 million, and you get more of a house and arguably more of a view. But some of the pros for Brentwood is that you're in Brentwood and you're next to all the movie stars and all the centralized stuff that LA has to offer. So that is a convenience play there as well. Let's break this down real quick, because if your house is valued around $6 million in California, and let's say your base rate's 1%, at that 1% base rate, approximately, you're about $60,000 a year in property taxes for your California Brentwood house. Now, in comparison to a beautiful home in Scottsdale, around $3 million with that base rate of approximately 0.0056, you're looking at $16,800 for the year in property taxes, a savings of $43,200 a year. This is an incredible amount of money that you can save in a beautiful place that most people would argue is one of the top suburbs in all America, Scottsdale, Arizona, and some would argue a bigger, better, and newer house. And if I still haven't convinced you on the tax side of things, let's go to sales tax. Sales tax in Arizona is not the cheapest. It's up there a little more, but you're looking at about 8.38% on sales tax in the Phoenix, Arizona area. Combine that with LA, a sales tax around 9.5%, and in the Bay Area, a sales tax around 9.3%, and you're saving money right there on everything you buy as well. So when it comes to taxes, a big pro to live in the Phoenix, Arizona area. Now let's move on to jobs. Before I do that, let's talk about population migration. Did you know that over the last 10 years, on average, 173 people from the state of California have migrated to the state of Arizona every single day? That's right. That is a lot of people. We're talking in the ballpark of 600,000 to 700,000 people over that period of time. That net migration into Arizona is huge, and it's continuing in the year 2025 and most likely beyond. Now, for the first time in the history of Phoenix, Arizona, we are having a ton of companies, large corporations, pour into the Phoenix, Arizona area. Either new headquarters are forming here in Phoenix or big divisions of companies are moving into the Phoenix, Arizona. Why? Because of the business-friendly corporate environment that Arizona and Phoenix has to offer from a tax standpoint and less regulation standpoint, less red tape, and the list goes on. Kind of just the opposite of what the state of California does to many of their employers that are there. And that's why some businesses are leaving the state of California and going to other states, including Arizona as one of them. In fact, last fiscal year, Phoenix added 37 companies alone with an overall average salary of $72,443 a year. Some of these companies are notable, some are not as, but they are still large and do things more under the radar. But the notable ones, you're looking at Facebook, Google, Amazon, Intel, TSMC, Apple, and these investments are ranging in the billions of dollars that these companies are either developing or moving towards the Phoenix area to develop and add more jobs to their already big infrastructures. And they see Phoenix as the perfect place for that. Other companies that are expanding their business footprint in the Phoenix area include Nestle, Procter & Gamble, Kohler, Lucid, LG, JA Solar, the Mediterranean Shipping Company, and the list goes on. I could keep going for a while, but Phoenix is exploding currently, and I've been here for over 2 decades and 20 years selling real estate while I've been in Phoenix, and I had never seen a local economy in Phoenix be like this. The future is extremely bright for the amount of companies and high-paying jobs coming to the Phoenix area, not just this year, but over the next 5 to 10 years for sure. And the industry that is leading the charge is definitely the tech industry, semiconductor industry, with 2 of the largest companies in the entire world operating right out of the Phoenix area, with Intel and their corporate headquarters in the Chandler area, and the new $165 billion investment that TSMC is making at their North Phoenix plant that they're putting right there off the I-17 in North Phoenix. It is going to be a game changer. Now, all the suppliers that are coming along that tech corridor over the next 5 to 10 years to support the fabrication of all of these semiconductors that TSMC is making is going to be incredible. Companies like Amcor or Tokyo Electron America that are suppliers and many, many more for all of these tech chips and semiconductors is just an explosion that we are seeing here in the Phoenix area. Also, another trend that we're seeing in Phoenix are big data centers and the AI that is coming along with those. The big companies of the S&P 500 that have footprints for data centers and need that computing process and all that area that comes with it are located right here in the Phoenix area. They're building more and more. In fact, Phoenix is the second ranked city in the entire country for industrial real estate development, housing a lot of the shipping, and of course, data centers for these big companies. So I'm extremely bullish on Phoenix as a city that has a super bright local economic forecast. And unofficially, if I had to rank it, it's definitely in the top 3 across America. That's a big reason why people continue to flock from California into Phoenix. Now let's talk about proximity for a minute. Now when I talk about proximity, I mean how Phoenix sits in relation to other big cities around it and how easy it is to travel to those cities and different areas and different environments and different weather. Because we all know the weather in Phoenix can get hot in the summertime. So people like to get out, people like to be able to travel as well. And if it doesn't have to do with leisure, they may have to travel for work. So how does that compare to other major cities? Well, Phoenix is located right in the center for the most part of the state of Arizona. When people think of Arizona, they think of the desert. And that's cool because that's where most of the population is located in Phoenix and of course down in Tucson, and both are desert climates. Phoenix also has a very unique location because you can get to many other major cities in a matter of a 1 1-hour flight plus or minus a few minutes. So for example, you can get to San Diego or Los Angeles or Las Vegas all within about 1 hour. Now, if you go to the Bay Area, it's a little over an hour. If you go to Albuquerque, a little over 1 hour. But those are all phenomenal places you can get to really quick, including Denver, only about 1.5 hours away. Now, if you want to hit the beach, you can drive, and the drive time to San Diego is about 5.5 hours, and LA about 6 hours if you want to do that. Now, if you want to go to a beach that's even closer and you're okay with getting a passport, you can go across the border down to Rocky Point, which is only a 4-hour drive from Phoenix, and the water is warm, unlike the Pacific Ocean side where the water can be just a little chilly most of the year around. So it's in prime location to get to these other big cities. But wait, if you don't want to fly or can't afford to fly, you can actually change the weather literally by driving 2 hours north from Phoenix up into Flagstaff, where you're sitting above 7,000 feet above sea level. And it's very similar to a Colorado climate where you have big pines, ponderosa pines, and you can ski and you can do mountain biking in this beautiful climate that literally can be anywhere from 20 to 50 degrees cooler than what it is currently down in the Phoenix Valley area. So that's what a lot of people choose to do. They choose to get out for a weekend to drive up 2 hours, spend a day, day and a half, maybe 2 days, and come back down to start their week on Monday or Sunday, and they get a little escape from the heat during the summertime. Or maybe they go up for a day trip or a weekend trip to ski or snowboard when it is beautiful down here in Phoenix with about 70, 75 degrees, and they go up there, it's 22 degrees, 30 degrees, whatever it is, and they get some snowing and snowboarding in and come back down to have a nice dinner on a day trip 2 hours later in Phoenix, outside on your back patio when it's 72 degrees. Oh, by the way, in December. Now, speaking of proximity and weather, let's talk about just that. Talk about the weather differences and the environmental conditions between California and Arizona currently. A lot of people from not just California, but outside the entire country come to Arizona for one main reason when it comes to environmental conditions: the lack of natural disasters. That is a big draw for most people, and Californians, no different, because they have a lot of natural disasters, from mudslides to wildfires to potentially droughts, and the list goes on. So if you want to avoid a lot of those things, oh, did I mention earthquakes as well? Yeah, we don't really have that threat here in the desert in Phoenix, Arizona. We also don't have the threat of many other things that California has. Now, one thing Arizona does have are wildfires, but it just so happens that when the wildfires hit Arizona and where they hit in Arizona, typically it's not around any type of major populous area. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One being the fact that Phoenix, which is the most populous area, sits in a valley. So you have mountains that kind of surround it, kind of almost protecting it from the open desert where many times wildfires can start. So unlike California, where wildfires can decimate highly populous areas, Arizona doesn't really have that track record. In fact, over the last 10 years, California has recorded 35 natural large disasters, compared to Arizona over the last 10 years. Arizona's only recorded 10. So it's a difference of 25 natural disasters that have happened between the two states. And so you really don't have that threat near as much living in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And again, when it comes to earthquakes, I know it depends on where you're at in California, but that is a real thing. As you know, they happen and they can cause a lot of destruction. That doesn't happen here in the Phoenix area. So let's talk about what Phoenix does have. They do have monsoons. Now, they happen usually one time a year between July and August. That's about it. But these monsoons can cause flash flooding. And when we have a natural disaster, that's pretty much the extent of our natural disaster. The rain comes down so hard in such a short period of time that the ground that's not normal fertile dirt and soil cannot soak up all the rain that fast. And because it can't, rain has to go somewhere and go somewhere quick, and all that water builds up. And they do have good retention areas and engineering around most roads and neighborhoods and cities throughout the entire Phoenix area. However, flash flooding can occur. And so when you get these flash floods going down desert washes, you need to stay out of them with yourself and or your car, because they can get stuck in there. And when that happens, people do die on an annual basis sometimes in those flash flooding, because they get stuck and they get washed away, and it's very unfortunate. So that is kind of the extent of our natural disasters, but that even doesn't happen that often. I remember 2 years ago, the entire monsoon season, it didn't rain one time. It got windy a couple times and cloudy and looked like it was going to storm, and it just never happened. So we do like the rain actually. You just gotta be careful, make sure you don't put yourself in the danger of being in a flash flooding area if in fact that happens. Speaking of natural disasters, let's talk about the next thing, which is insurance. Guys, insurance is going up everywhere across America, so no one's immune from that. But in California and Florida, sorry Florida, I had to include you in this video, but your insurance situations are different. They are bad. Many carriers electing to drop people in certain coverages and not write new policies in those two states. California is a big one because of the natural disasters primarily. And so California has now pivoted to have legislature and have laws in play to have some sort of government-sponsored insurance to step in and help out called FAIR, F-A-I-R. And so there's a lot of details on that we won't get into in this video, but unfortunately with most of the insurance carriers, you can't get comprehensive coverage, at least very easily. Whereas in Arizona, that still does exist. Now it's going up in Arizona too, don't kid yourself, but it is still available to get that comprehensive coverage because again, primarily of a lack of natural disasters. A lot of what I'm hearing with the insurance rates going up in Arizona primarily stem from the pooled risk that many other states are contributing heavily to when it comes to the losses in California, Florida, Texas, and these types of states. But in Arizona, unfortunately, because you're pooled risk with these big insurance companies that are national, we're seeing the brunt of that as well. So I'll give you a quick example of a rental house that I currently own that's worth about $325,000. Policy just jumped up on a 12-month policy to about $125 a month. And that includes, I believe, either $2,500 or $5,000 deductible. So again, it's gonna be different for you potentially. It's gonna be different for the type of house or property you buy and what kind of insurance you need and what kind of deductible you want. But again, that just gives you just a general rule of thumb of in Arizona where housing insurance currently sits. Now let's pivot to the next thing, which is cost of living. This is the big one that a lot of people want to know about. Now I think overall people kind of generally understand that cost of living in California is going to be more than Arizona. Why? Because in California, cost of living is pretty much more than most states across America. There are some exceptions there because there's other high rent states obviously throughout the country, but Arizona's not as much as California. So spoiler alert there, but let's break it down line item by line item on this topic right now. Let's break down the monthly cost of certain aspects that everyone needs for the most part to live on a daily and weekly basis. Before I break this down, we're gonna assume that it's a family household of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids. So let's start with housing. In California overall, you're looking at $2,600 a month to live compared to the Phoenix, Arizona area of $1,880. Next up is food. In California, you're looking at $1,100 a month, and comparison in Phoenix, you're looking at about $995. Let's pivot to childcare. Childcare is $2,100 in California compared to Phoenix, which is $1,900 a month. Transportation is $1,760 a month, and in Phoenix, it is $1,527 a month. Healthcare in California comes in at $1,240 a month, whereas in Phoenix, it's a little bit higher actually at $1,320 a month. Taxes blended, we already covered this in depth, but taxes blended comes in currently at $1,824. And in Phoenix, it comes in at $1,232. Then you have some other necessities and miscellaneous items that comes in for California at $1,200. And in Phoenix, that comes in currently at $960. Now, if you look at the total annually, you're talking a difference of around $20,000 to $21,000 a year difference between living in California for cost living as opposed to Arizona. So what could you do with that extra money? Same goes for taxes that we talked about earlier. If you have that extra money in your pocket, what could you do with that? And by the way, Arizona is a beautiful place to live. We don't have the beaches, but we do have mountains. And I know in California, you have mountains too, based on where you are, but you have beaches. So you're basically trading. You get mountains and mountains in both, but you also get desert and mountain, or you have beach and mountain. And I know a lot of people are all water people, but a lot of people love the desert and the mountain cabin lifestyle, and that's what Phoenix also can offer. So there's no denying the fact that we don't have a beach, but we do have some lakes actually for being in the desert, which are nice. They're big recreational lakes, Lake Pleasant or Bartlett Lake or Roosevelt Lake. But you also have the ability to get to a beach in 4 to 6 hours, depending on which beach you want to go to. But the lifestyle, especially for an outdoor one, is phenomenal. I know it gets hot in the summertime, but again, you can escape the Flagstaff, or again, you can choose not to do that many activities during the middle of the day. But you can still go out and golf in the morning. You can go for a run, a bike ride, and do all those things. And guys, when the sun goes down, is it still hot in July and August? Of course it is, but it is bearable because of the lack of humidity, which makes actually 110 feel like 90 in many retrospects. Now, finally, let's pivot to education and schools. Now, it's no secret that Arizona as a state has been ranked pretty low when it comes to public education with all the rankings over the last several decades. And it's no secret, if you look back, California over many, many decades ago was ranked really high. But over the past couple of decades specifically, California's rankings have continued to decline every single year. Why? Well, because unfortunately, the lack of state funding and the lack of the priority of state to take the students and teachers and make them first. So overall, you have Arizona that's kind of increasing and you have California that is decreasing. And that's kind of the overall gist of the school public system for both states. But breaking it down further, Prop 13 has done a lot to unfortunately affect the California school district. And according to the last US News and World Ranking report, California comes in at number 24 overall. But just again, several decades ago, California was ranked in the top 5 almost every single year, going back to the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Then over time, that has started to dissipate. Whereas Arizona is starting to increase. In fact, Arizona, which has been traditionally in the bottom 5, is now currently ranked on that report at number 42. So it's going in the right direction, but still a lot of room for improvement. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind with Arizona and their state rankings is that only 19% of the actual state land of the entire state is privately held. And so you do have a lot of Native American reservations throughout the state of Arizona. Unfortunately, it's kind of sad, but the public education on the reservations is not that good. And so when you take that and you blend it with some other school districts, it kind of brings it all to this lower level. But probably no different than California, certain cities and areas do actually have pretty good school districts. So it just depends where you're at in the state for probably both states, but we're making general statements right now. And overall, I'll take Arizona's school system more so than I would California's at this current state in time. Now, Arizona does have a lot to offer when it comes to education outside of the public school system. And outside of that, it's important to know that in Phoenix, you also have open enrollment. That's right. So you can live in one city, and if there's a better school over here and you're willing to drive, you can drive and get your kid to school and you can go to that school. You do not have to go to the school that's within your boundary of where your primary residence sits. So that is huge, making school option just that, a choice and an option to go to without having to have the financial burden of selling your house, buying a new one in maybe a more expensive area and things of that nature. But in Arizona, you also have a lot of charter schools, traditional schools, which are like a private school, but publicly funded and free for the student. Then of course you have a great plethora of options for private education, from Catholic schools to Christian schools, and the list goes on. So if you look at niche.com, you can see that a lot of the high ranking schools in the state of Arizona all start with the first word of Basis. Basis is actually a private school, but it is actually free to go to if you can get in. This is a rigorous educational environment. And so it's not for every kid growing up, but for some kids that need the challenge, it's a great place to be academically. When it comes to student and teacher ratio in the two states, they actually are equal. California comes in at 22-1 on the classroom size, and Arizona comes in to 22-1 ratio as well. So there's no plus or minuses there when it comes to having more teachers for less students, which is always a better thing if you can get it. And some states do have lower student to teacher ratios. So when it comes to K through 12, I would definitely rank Arizona overall ahead of California's. But when it comes to the higher education, California's gonna be hard to beat because there are so many options when it comes to colleges, large colleges, big universities, small ones, publicly funded, privately funded, and the list goes on. They're everywhere. Whereas in Arizona, we don't have that many higher education universities. We have Arizona State University, located in Tempe, Arizona, in the Phoenix area. You have the University of Arizona, our two big state-funded schools located in Tucson. Then you have Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. Then, of course, you have Grand Canyon University, which is a private Christian university in Phoenix as well. Now, there are some smaller ones throughout the state, but those are our 4 main higher education universities. Then, of course, we have an entire community college or junior college circuit or league, if you will, as well throughout the entire state. So what do you think? Which state is right for you? Again, if you're sitting in California today, I'm telling you right now, Arizona is going to be a phenomenal option for you. So give it a try. Give me a call, 480-660-5974. I would love to chat with you about what makes Arizona so special. And again, how maybe we can compare that to your current lifestyle in California. And hopefully this video did a great job of breaking down how maybe your lifestyle could get even better if you did decide to make the move here to Phoenix. We would love to have you. Give me a call, call when you get a chance or book a time below on our calendar link, and we love to chat with you at your convenience. Oh, and if you want to check out our 5-star reviews, check it out right here at this link. We have over 450 5-star reviews from all of our past clients. And if you're thinking about moving to the Phoenix area, this video right here, you're going to want to watch, is breaking down the best places and suburbs and areas to live within the greater Phoenix area. Thank you so much, guys. And don't forget to call me.